I know that you, Mr. President, have a long relationship with President Putin. Do you speak to him more now? How often do you see him? Do you get a lot of time with him? Give me your reflections, please.
If we're talking about our personal relationship with President Putin, it wasn't always cloudless. You know that we argued and occasionally we even quarreled. But we've always been the utmost close friends and reliable partners. As I once said, no one has a relationship as close as the presidents of Belarus and the president of Russia. That's first and foremost. Secondly, lately our relationship has not only intensified and become stronger, but we also have absolute trust in each other. That's why we practically don't have any problems.
How would you describe President Putin's state of mind right now?
It's not what you think in the West and the United States. He's an absolutely adequate, healthy, athletic man. As you can see in person, an absolutely adequate person.
He's not winning in Ukraine, to put it mildly. Have you noticed any change? Does he seem worried to you, anxious, under pressure?
You know, I don't see him every day and I don't spend day and night with him, so maybe he is nervous. Maybe he is experiencing some tensions. He is the president of a huge country, after all. So there are enough problems there, and because of various problems, you always feel pressure. And I'm saying this as a president myself. With regards to the Ukrainian conflict, you're saying that he isn't winning, but you aren't winning either. 50 countries are right now essentially fighting a war with Russia on Ukrainian territory. There's also no victory there for you. Therefore, it is necessary to look for ways out of this situation. And I have to tell you that unlike you Westerners, Putin has offered options and solutions multiple times. It's just that they don't seem to want to listen and they don't want to hear him at the moment, even though that they should. And that is also our position. And you know, the futility of the current situation in Ukraine is recognized by some members of NATO. And not just some, but many of them. Let's take Turkey, for example. We met yesterday with President Erdogan and agreed that in the near future we will conduct negotiations at the highest level, and we will also touch upon the question of Ukraine. I will have that kind of visit to Ankara. I noticed that President Erdogan and his country, which is one of the key countries, they are hinting, and not just hinting, but saying that it's time for us to sit down at the negotiation table and that we need to negotiate. That's why it would be necessary for the United States to conduct this process in this way, instead of just sending out more and more modern weapons to Ukraine. And especially because of the way the situation is happening on the front lines, none of these American weapons would change the way that the situation is developing there.
President Putin's state of mind is important to the world. We're at a very risky time. You're one of the leaders, the world leaders who knows President Putin best. Do you think President Putin would use a nuclear weapon?
You know, the most important thing, the most important axiom is not to drive your companion or even your enemy into a corner. If you drive a person or a country into a corner, there's only one way out from there. That is to move forward. That is why red lines should not be crossed. You just shouldn't cross them. With regards to nuclear weapons, all weapons are created for a purpose, and if this kind of weapon exists, it's clear that it's produced to be used. Russia has clearly outlined its position. If there is to be, God forbid, an attack on the territory of the Russian Federation, in that case, Russia can, if necessary, use all kinds of weapons. As for the subtext of your question, never. Putin and the leadership of Russia never set the goal of using nuclear weapons in Ukraine. There is no necessity for this. Have you noticed the attack on Ukraine with the high-precision weapons in response to the Crimean bridge attack over the past few days? You probably noticed how powerful that was. But that's not everything. Russia, and I know this for certain, possesses the most modern weapons. There is no need for nuclear weapons. Russia will manage without nuclear weapons. But the question arises, who benefits from this? Why would anyone need this? It will no longer be thousands, but hundreds of thousands of people that will perish, including people from the Ukrainian side. That's why talk of nuclear weapons, and I already see leaders of certain countries talking about this. For example, the UK has multiple times talked about it, and Macron has also now started talking about it. This topic should never even be discussed. It would be the end of our planet if there was the use of nuclear weapons by even just one country, because it will cause a chain reaction. Russia understands this really well, and no one, I want to underline this once again, and I know it for sure from President Putin, no one has set the goal to use nuclear weapons. I'm absolutely sure about it. We need to look for ways of a peaceful solution to this conflict. It is beneficial for all, including the United States. And you know, the main initiator that is placing their bets, relying on the use of nuclear weapons, can you make a guess as to who that is? I want this to be a rhetorical question for you. I would tell you more. It provokes in you some kind of body movements in terms of nuclear weapons. You, the United States, do not fall for this trick. You are a big technological country. The USA, no need to dance to the tune of crazed politicians. There are nuclear weapons. Let them stay in the warehouse where it currently is. If the nuclear weapons were moved, say, to Poland, then there will be a chain reaction. Reciprocal steps will follow from the other side. So, really, there's no reason to go for this approach. We all need to calm down and sit down at the negotiating table.
Will Belarus join the Russian offensive?
We have already said many times that we are taking part in the military operation and that we support Russia in various ways. Our support lies in the fact that our western borders with Poland and Lithuania are being protected from violation, so that is keeping the Russian troops from being stabbed in the back via Belarus. That's how it's been from the start. Today, our involvement includes providing medical care to Russians and Ukrainians, to provide food for Russians and Ukrainians, and most importantly and significantly, we provide asylum for refugees from Ukraine. We take in about 400 to 500 of them daily. We are providing them with fully equal rights. This is our participation, but we are not killing anyone there, and we are not planning to do so. Firstly, no one is asking us to participate in this operation. In this case, I'm of course referring to Russia. And we aren't planning to get pulled into what's going on over there. We have always said this, and we are saying it now. But it seems that no one is willing to listen to us and not willing to hear us. But that's your choice.
You know about Ukraine talking about mass graves, about torture, allegations. You know about civilians being targeted, women and children. How can Belarus justify voting against the UN resolution to condemn the Russian offensive?
You know, an information war is going on. Ukrainians are talking about war crimes, about mass graves of the Russian side, and the Russian side is analogously is discovering crimes of the Ukrainian side. A typical information attack against one another. In this situation, it's important to get to the root of things. A war is going on, and as a result of this war, during the course of this war, anything is possible, including what you have mentioned. So we shouldn't just be discussing how bad things are. We know they're bad. It's a war, and war is always bad. Instead, we should be stopping the war and looking for a way out of the current situation. I recently said that the world is concerned with the problem of finding out who's guilty. Listen, we'll decide who's guilty later. Every day, people are dying. Let's stop the war and come to some agreements, and then we can decide on who's wrong and who's right. I think this would be a normal decision, and we begin the process of negotiations, of peace talks, but it will have stopped. Zelensky was forbidden to continue peace talks. Who forbade him? Guess. He's not independent. But today, everyone's throwing fakes around, deciding who's right and wrong, accusing each other. This is not the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.